Most gardeners are fighting an invisible war for sunlight. Grimly, a brutal war. Honestly, they were never meant to win. You plant seeds in the wrong spots, watch seedlings wither season after season, and convince yourself that your soil is broken. Or that you just don't have a green thumb. Look, here's the secret the big agricultural companies never told you. Some of the most nutrient-dense, productive vegetables on Earth don't just tolerate low light. They actually explode with growth without direct scorching sun. Welcome back to Golden Acre Homestead. Today, we're uncovering 20 scientifically tested crops that actually prefer cool shade over full sun. Including one mystery crop that completely outproduced my sunny garden beds 3 seasons in a row, and another sitting in your yard right now that most people call an annoying weed. Before we reveal the list, think about this. For centuries, ancient monks, indigenous forest farmers, and medieval growers harvested massive amounts of food against towering stone walls and beneath dense tree canopies. They understood a fundamental truth that modern gardening books completely forgot. Shade is not the enemy of growth. It's simply a different biological environment. When a plant sits in direct, brutal afternoon sun, it enters high-stress survival mode. Water loss accelerates, heat stress spikes, and cellular efficiency drops. In the shade, ambient temperatures stay cool, soil moisture remains trapped, and specific plants operate like precision biological machines. What you're about to hear will change how you view your yard forever. Now, kicking off our list at number 20, we have spinach. Most people assume spinach needs blazing sunshine to grow thick and strong, but honestly, that's completely backwards. Spinach was cultivated in ancient Persia as early as 600 AD, tucked safely inside cool, shaded courtyard gardens where intense desert heat would have incinerated weaker crops. Here's the scientific reality. When spinach is exposed to direct afternoon sun, it panics. The plant experiences heat stress, triggers an emergency survival response, and bolts. It shoots up a tall, ugly flowering stem, pumps bitter defense chemicals into its leaves, and makes itself completely inedible overnight. Shade hits the pause button on that panic cycle. Mechanically, spinach leaves are broad solar panels, engineered specifically to absorb diffuse ambient light, the soft light that bounces off your fence or filters through a tree canopy. Tuck spinach along a north-facing wall, and you can quietly harvest tender, nutrient-dense leaves every single week without a single ray of direct sun. Coming in at number 19, if spinach surprised you, lettuce confirms the rule. Lettuce is one of the oldest cultivated vegetables on Earth, dating back over 4,000 years. Ancient Egyptian tomb paintings depict lettuce growing in sheltered garden beds, intentionally protected from the blazing midday sun. Ancient growers knew what modern gardeners keep relearning the hard way. Lettuce hates heat, and heat always hitches a ride with direct sunlight. In direct light, lettuce leaf cells lose water faster than their roots can pull it from the earth. The plant literally sweats itself into high-stress survival mode. But in partial shade, lettuce does something remarkable. It expands its leaf surface area, stretching wider to catch soft, filtered light rays. It grows slightly slower, but far more steadily. The flavor stays sweet, The crunch stays crisp, and your harvest window extends by up to an entire month compared to sun-scalded beds. At number 18, arugula. Arugula carries a reputation for being bold and peppery, and it earned it. Prized since the Roman Empire, Roman soldiers reportedly ate wild arugula for stamina. But it didn't grow in open, scorched fields. It clung to the cool, dark shadows of stone walls and olive groves across the Mediterranean. In full sun, summer heat causes arugula to bolt in a matter of days, turning the leaves tough and violently bitter. Scientifically, lower light levels regulate chemical compounds called glucosinolates, keeping that signature peppery flavor perfectly balanced instead of harsh. In deep shade, arugula stays mild enough for delicious fresh salads, complex enough for gourmet cooking, and productive enough to cut and come again all season long. Moving on to number 17, peas. Here is a vegetable almost everyone plants in full sun, and almost everyone watches collapse by midsummer. Peas were among the very first crops ever domesticated over 10,000 years ago. But ancient farmers didn't plant them in exposed, flat plains. They planted them in shaded mountain valleys. Why? Because pea flowers are extraordinarily sensitive to thermal stress. The moment direct sun drives temperatures above 80 degrees Fahrenheit, pea plants undergo reproductive shutdown. They drop their delicate blossoms, and no blossoms means zero pods. It's an absolute harvest killer. By placing your pea trellis against a north-facing fence or beneath a fruit tree canopy, you drop the ambient temperature around the flowers. The blossoms hold, and you extend your harvest window by 4 to 6 full weeks. At number 16, we have kale. Long before kale became a trendy superfood in modern smoothie bars, it was the ultimate medieval survival crop. Throughout the Dark Ages in Europe, peasant families grew kale along the dark north sides of their stone huts, places where every other crop withered and died. It fed entire villages through brutal winters because kale is nearly indestructible. In partial shade, kale grows slightly slower, but the leaves that form are noticeably thicker, darker, and packed with dense chlorophyll. Because kale leaves are hyper-efficient at converting minimal light into cellular energy, it can maintain robust growth with as little as 3 hours of indirect light a day. Plant it in your darkest garden bed, strip the outer leaves for dinner, and it will quietly feed you deep into the winter months. Now, number 15 is Swiss chard, one of the most visually stunning vegetables on earth, hiding a fascinating biological secret. Originating along the rocky, shadowed cliffs of the Mediterranean coast, wild chard adapted to survival in dappled light and harsh sea breezes. What happens to Swiss chard in low light will blow your mind. As light levels drop, the plant triggers a specialized pigment response. It produces higher concentrations of anthocyanins and carotenoids, the exact compounds that give the stems their brilliant ruby red, golden yellow, and neon pink colors. Swiss chard actually grows more vibrant and nutritionally dense when grown in partial shade. Requiring only 2 to 4 hours of indirect light daily, it handles heat better than almost any other green. Coming in at number 14, garlic. This one shocks almost every grower we talk to here at Golden Acre Homestead. Garlic has been cultivated for over 5,000 years, preserved inside ancient Egyptian tombs. Yet throughout ancient history, garlic was tucked into the dappled, partially shaded borders of orchard clearings. In direct, intense summer sun, the soil bakes, forcing garlic roots to stall. In shaded beds, the ground stays cool, moist, and loose, exactly what subterranean bulbs demand. Garlic is an underground storage organ. It needs just enough light to power basic leaf function, but nowhere near the brutal heat gardeners force upon it. Plant your cloves in the shade during late fall and dig up huge, complex bulbs by midsummer. Next up at number 13, carrots. If you look at standard seed packets, carrots are almost universally labeled as full sun. The seed packets are wrong. Carrots were first domesticated over 1,000 years ago in the cool, high-altitude mountain valleys of modern-day Afghanistan, environments characterized by filtered forest light, rocky, cool soil, and constant moisture. Back then, carrots weren't even orange. They were deep purple, yellow, and white, and all of them evolved in cool, low-light understories. In modern shade gardens, carrot roots develop far more evenly. Because low light prevents the topsoil from baking into a hard crust, the tender taproot can penetrate deep into the soft earth without splitting or cracking. The green tops might grow slightly smaller in low light, but the underground root, the part you actually eat, stays sweeter, crispier, and completely free of woody, heat-stressed core fibers. At number 12, mint. If you have a completely dark, forgotten corner of your yard where every single plant goes to die, plant mint. Mint is arguably the most shade-tolerant culinary herb on the planet. It evolved along shaded, wet riverbanks and dark woodland edges across the Mediterranean, cultivated by ancient Greeks and medieval monks in shadowy monastery courtyards. In full sun, mint becomes a hyper-aggressive, invasive menace that can swallow a backyard in a single season. But in deep shade, its growth becomes controlled, elegant, and perfectly manageable. Put it in a pot, stick it in your darkest shadow, and harvest endless fresh leaves for drinks, teas, and cooking without worrying about it overtaking your yard. Now, number 11. Cilantro. Cilantro is the single most frustrating herb for millions of home gardeners. You buy a healthy, leafy pot, plant it in a sunny bed, and within 7 days, it shoots up a thin stem, produces tiny white flowers, and completely loses its taste. You blame yourself, but direct sun is the real culprit. Cilantro originated in the cool, partially shaded regions of southern Europe and western Asia, cultivated for over 3,000 years. Direct sunlight and heat trigger an immediate hormonal panic in cilantro, telling it that its life is ending and it must produce seeds immediately. When you move cilantro into deep, uninterrupted shade, that biological panic button is never pressed. The leaves stay broad, flat, tender, and harvestable for weeks longer than any sun-grown counterpart. Entering our top 10 at number 10, we have bok choy, an absolute staple of Asian cuisine with a documented history going back over 1,500 years. Ancient growers didn't plant it in open, scorched fields. They grew it in the cool, shaded valleys of southern China, beneath the thick canopy of taller crops in traditional polyculture systems. In direct sunlight, bok choy experiences thermal panic. The tender white stalks turn tough and fibrous, and the plant immediately rushes to set seeds. Scientifically, bok choy reaches its absolute peak cellular quality at cool temperatures between 55 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Tree canopies and wall shadows keep soil temperatures locked in that sweet spot, allowing you to harvest crisp, tender heads weeks after your neighbor's sun-baked crops have failed. Coming in at number 9, watercress. This crop carries a history that almost nobody learns, along with a shade tolerance that genuinely shocks modern growers. Watercress was a primary survival food for Roman legionnaires who gathered it from shaded riverbanks during military campaigns across northern Europe. In the 17th century, Francis Bacon documented its potent medicinal powers. And during the British industrial era, working-class communities survived on watercress harvested from cool, shaded streams. In nature, watercress lives exclusively in moving water under dense tree overhangs, receiving virtually zero direct sunshine. In a home garden, you don't even need a running river. You can grow watercress in shallow trays of water, positioned in your deepest, darkest shade. Nutritionally, it is one of the most micronutrient-dense plants on Earth, flourishing in total shadow. At number 8, mushrooms. Technically a fungus rather than a plant. No list of shade-grown food would be complete without them. Chinese records from 600 AD detail inoculating logs with shiitake mycelium and resting them deep inside shaded forest valleys, a technique still used by top commercial growers today. Mushrooms possess zero chlorophyll. They do not photosynthesize, which means they require absolutely no sunlight to create food energy. In fact, direct UV sunlight is lethal to them. It dries out the delicate mycelial network and halts mushroom production almost instantly. That dead space under your elevated wooden deck or against a dark north-facing brick wall is luxury real estate for oyster and shiitake mushrooms, turning forgotten shadows into gourmet harvests. Now, number 7 on our list is mosh, also known as corn salad or lamb's lettuce, the unexpected champion I mentioned at the start of this video. For centuries, mosh grew wild along the shaded edges of European grain fields. In the 1600s, it became a cornerstone crop in French monastery gardens, cultivated specifically because it produced food in shaded, freezing winter conditions. In my own side-by-side garden tests here at Golden Acre Homestead, mosh outproduced every single leafy green in deep shade, delivering massive harvests with zero direct sunlight and virtually no maintenance. 'Cause mosh forms a low-lying rosette, it hugs the cool ground where moisture stays trapped and diffuse light is absorbed with maximum efficiency. Its flavor is buttery, mild, and delightfully nutty. Plant it in your darkest garden shadow and prepare to be amazed. At number 6, mizuna and tatsoi. These two crops deserve a spot in every shaded garden, yet most growers have never dropped a single seed into their soil. Mizuna and tatsoi originate from Japan and China, cultivated for hundreds of years in the cool, filtered light of traditional household gardens. Both of these brassicas perform noticeably better in partial shade than in full sun. Direct sun makes mizuna tough and causes tatsoi to bolt instantly. In the shade, mizuna's feathery leaves stay tender and sweet, while tatsoi forms a dense, glossy rosette that looks like a living piece of art. Best of all, you can begin harvesting tender baby leaves just 21 days after planting, cutting them back for multiple continuous harvests all season long. Breaking into our top 5 at number 5, sorrel. Sorrel is one of the oldest cultivated perennial herbs in human history, utilized across Europe, Asia, and West Africa for over 4,000 years. It appears in ancient Greek medical texts, medieval herbals, and traditional folk cooking from France to Russia. In the wild, sorrel grows along shaded woodland borders in dappled, indirect light. In a shade garden, sorrel is basically indestructible. Because it is a perennial, you plant it once in your darkest corner and it returns year after year without replanting. It tolerates deep shadow, poor soil, and neglect without showing a single sign of stress. Its leaves carry a sharp, vibrant lemon flavor. Eat it raw in salads, cook it into rich soups, or use it as a fresh lemon substitute straight from your shaded garden bed. At number 4, endive and chicory. What researchers discovered about these two closely related greens shocked even veteran agronomists in controlled university trials. For centuries, master gardeners practiced a specialized technique called blanching, deliberately blocking sunlight from the plants during their final weeks of growth. By depriving chicory of light, growers triggered a cellular transformation, decreasing bitterness compounds while raising natural sugars. In a modern home garden, endive and chicory flourish in partial to full shade. The reduced light naturally tempers their signature bitterness, yielding complex, crunchy, gourmet salad greens that full-sun gardens simply cannot replicate. Coming in at number 3, perilla, widely known as shiso. Central to East Asian food and medicine for over 2,000 years, perilla appears in Chinese medical texts from the Han Dynasty. In nature, perilla thrives in the partially shaded understory of East Asian forests, growing beneath massive tree canopies in filtered light. When planted in deep shade, perilla produces huge, vibrantly colored leaves, either deep forest green or striking purple red. Its flavor profile is unbelievable, a complex combination of mint, basil, and anise that elevates any dish. A single perilla plant tucked into a shaded garden bed can produce hundreds of aromatic leaves across a single season with virtually minimal effort beyond basic watering. At number 2, Belgian endive. The story behind this crop sounds like a myth, but it is pure agricultural history. In 1830, during the Belgian War of Independence, a farmer named John Lammers stored chicory roots in his pitch-black cellar to make coffee substitute. Months later, when he opened the cellar door, he found that the roots had sprouted pale, tightly wrapped tender heads of leaves in complete darkness. He tasted them. They were crisp, mild, and utterly delicious. Forced chicory was born by complete accident. Today, Belgian endive is grown commercially inside pitch-black warehouses, never seeing a single ray of sunlight from sprout to harvest. You can replicate this exact process at home using a pot, soil, and a dark closet. And now, saved for our number 1 spot is the crop that will permanently change how you view your yard: ground elder. 99% of modern gardeners consider ground elder an aggressive, annoying weed, spending endless weekends trying to pull it out of shaded beds. Here's the secret. Ground elder was one of the most vital food crops of medieval Europe, carefully planted by monks against shadowed monastery walls where nothing else survived. The monks harvested it as a fresh spring pot herb, using it exactly as we use spinach today, and valued it as a medicinal treatment for joint pain and inflammation. Nutritionally, ground elder is a powerhouse loaded with vitamin C, vitamin A, and essential minerals. The most productive, shade-tolerant edible plant on this list is likely already growing in your yard right now. Look at what every single plant on this list has in common. They were all known by ancient farmers, by medieval monks, and by indigenous forest growers who fed whole communities from spaces modern gardeners walk past without a second glance. This knowledge didn't disappear because it stopped working. It disappeared because our culture became obsessed with artificial ideal conditions and wide open fields under a blazing summer sun. In chasing that illusion of perfection, we threw away thousands of years of human wisdom. The shadow cast by your house, your fence, or your oak tree is not a dead zone. It is a unique, highly protected microclimate waiting to be tapped. So, Here is my question for you today. Which crop on this list surprised you the most? And do you already have any of these growing in your yard right now? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one right here at Golden Acre Homestead. If this video shifted how you see your garden, hit that subscribe button. We have so much more ancient growing knowledge to uncover. Stop fighting for the sunlight you don't have and start growing in the shade you do. Thanks for watching Golden Acre Homestead.